Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome here today. I'm very pleased to be joined today by Donna Harpower, our Saskatchewan Party candidate for Humboldt-Watrous, as well as our campaign chair for this campaign. We have, beside Donna, we have Gord Wyant, our Saskatchewan Party candidate for Saskatoon Northwest. We have to my right Paul Merriman, the Saskatchewan Party candidate for Saskatoon Silver Springs Sutherland. And to his right, we have Jim Ryder, the Saskatchewan Party candidate for Rosetown Elrose. I would have obviously liked to have all of our Saskatoon candidates here in the room with us today, but of course that just isn't possible with the COVID protocols that are in place. So I had a chance to greet all of them outside for a few minutes ago. Over the first 2 weeks of the campaign, I have outlined our plan for a strong recovery and a strong Saskatchewan. There is some very good news out this morning showing that a strong recovery is already underway in this province. More Saskatchewan workers stayed on the job throughout the pandemic than in any province in the nation of Canada. Thousands of jobs have come back as we reopened our economy right here. And just this morning, the new job numbers from Statistics Canada show that Saskatchewan created 8,700 new jobs in September. Our unemployment rate fell to 6.8%, the lowest in the country for the second month in a row. That's thanks to you, Saskatchewan. Thank you. You have shown that we can reopen our economy. You have shown that we can bring back jobs. You have shown that we can control the spread of the COVID-19 virus at the very same time. Saskatchewan now has one of the lowest rates of active cases in the country. And at the same time, we have one of the strongest economic recoveries underway in Canada. And yes, our economic recovery is now underway. And the question in this election is, who do you trust to keep that recovery going? Well, the Saskatchewan Party has a plan for a strong Saskatchewan. It's a plan for a strong recovery. It's a plan to make life more affordable for everyone. And it's a plan for a growing Saskatchewan. It's a plan for strong financial management and a balanced budget by 2024. The recovery is underway here, and we want to keep that going, while at the same time making life more affordable for Saskatchewan families. That's why, if we are re-elected, the Saskatchewan Party will introduce a new home renovation tax credit that will save families $2,100 on the cost of their renovations. That's why we will cut everyone's power bill by 10% for 1 year. We will make life more affordable for students by increasing the Saskatchewan Advantage Scholarship. And we will make life more affordable for seniors by increasing the seniors' income plan benefit and reducing seniors' ambulance charges. We'll make life more affordable for families by helping with the costs of their kids' sports and other activities. And we will make life more affordable for the parents of children with autism by expanding individualized funding for children up to 12 years old. We'll make life more affordable for those families and those individuals that are living with diabetes by covering the cost of their insulin pumps for everyone in this province, and covering the cost of continuous glucose monitoring systems for children up to the age of 18. And we'll continue with our plan for a growing Saskatchewan by continuing to build hospitals, schools, and highways, by continuing to expand our export markets, and by working to achieve our goal of 100,000 more jobs in Saskatchewan by the year 2030. Together, our plan means a strong recovery, means a strong economy, strong communities, strong families, and a strong Saskatchewan. And we're very confident in our plan for a strong Saskatchewan, and that's why we will be sending this summary of our plan to every single household in the province. And here it is right here. It should be hitting your mailbox in the next few days. And I expect that we will be the only party that will send its platform to every Saskatchewan voter. We want voters to compare our record to that of the NDP. We want to compare the Saskatchewan Party's record of growth to the NDP's record of decline. We want to compare our record of building hospitals, building schools, building long-term care homes, to the record of the NDP who closed 52 hospitals, 176 schools, and 1,200 long-term care beds in our communities. We want to compare our record of the second-best rate of job growth in the nation to the NDP's job creation record, which was dead last in all of Canada. But more importantly, we want every voter in Saskatchewan to see our plan for a strong Saskatchewan. That's why we are sending out this platform mailer to each and every individual in the province. And if you want more information about our record or any of the proposals that we have in our platform, you can visit our website at saskparty.com. You can find one more thing on that website that you will never find on an NDP website, and that's a plan to balance the budget here. In fact, you know what the NDP platform says about balancing the budget. It says that they have a plan, to make a plan, to balance the budget. Well, a plan to make a plan, it's not a plan at all. It's utter nonsense. The election is on now. Voters deserve to see your plan now. Our plan is fully costed, and you will see Saskatchewan's budget return to balance in 2024 as our economy grows, as our economy recovers, so will our provincial revenues, which will mean a balanced budget by the year 2024, while continuing to invest in important public services like healthcare, like education, and public safety. That's a far cry from the NDP's reckless, unaffordable plan that will drive up the deficit, it will drive up your taxes, and you will still never see the budget back to balance. So there's a clear choice, a choice between our record and that of the NDP, between our plan and the NDP plan. And there's a clear answer to the question of who do you trust to lead Saskatchewan's economic recovery? Well, I believe the Saskatchewan Party has the best plan for a strong recovery and a strong Saskatchewan. And I am very happy to be sending that plan to every voter in this great province of Saskatchewan. Thank you. If there's any questions, we'd be happy to take those now.
Thanks very much, Mr. Moe. We'll now take questions from media. We'll ask the media ask the questions from the media microphone back here. We'll ask the questions are initially limited to one question, one follow-up.
Hi there. There's a group of youth in the province hoping for a youth debate between the two party leaders to focus specifically on their issues. Is this something that you'd be willing to do?
I don't know if we have that scheduled or not. I know there's a leaders debate coming here this next week. We're happy to participate in that. If I won't be at that debate, I suspect that the party will be making arrangements for one of our caucus members or our candidates, to attend that debate. I know the people with me today have attended a number of debates to date, and we will continue to endeavor to attend those that we can.
Absolutely. And follow up, how important are youth-specific issues to the Sask Party?
Absolutely. Our youth-specific issues are very, very important. You've seen that over the investment prior to the campaign by the Saskatchewan Party when we remained in government. The $2 billion injection shot that we had put, the booster shot that we had put into our capital builds program. Much of that investment is going into schools in this city of Saskatoon, the city of Regina, going into schools and communities right across the province. We saw an investment in the safe return to schools, in the safe return of our children, our youth, into the schools. You are seeing in this campaign platform that we have here, we are putting forward initiatives to ensure that our youth, our children that may be living with diabetes, our youth, our children that may be living, be on the autism spectrum, may have autism spectrum disorder. We are increasing our funding, increasing our support to those youth, increasing our support to youth right across the province. We need to do everything we can to continue to support and invest in our youth. That is the next generation. That is the generation that is going to continue to build and prosper in the province of Saskatchewan.
All right, thank you.
Sir, what will you do if you fall short of these revenue projections, which are key to achieving a balanced budget by 2024-25?
I'll turn this over to Donna Harpower, who may speak in a little more specifics to the revenue projections that are here. But we're very confident. We're very confident in the costing document that we have before you today. We're very confident in the revenue projections that we have that are here. We're as confident, I would say, as anyone in the country in these revenue projections. And I would just put this forward from this province of Saskatchewan. When you look at what has occurred over the course of the last 6 or 7 months as we respond to this COVID pandemic, Saskatchewan, the very first province to put forward a budget in the nation of Canada. We still don't have a federal budget. Saskatchewan, the very first province to put forward a 4-year plan to return to balance in the nation of Canada. Saskatchewan, the very first province to begin to recover, and I would say that Saskatchewan today is leading that recovery with the job numbers are out today, 6.8% in unemployment rate. We are leading the nation in the unemployment rate. The recovery is underway here in this province, and that is thanks to the people of this province who have, first and foremost, abided by the public health recommendations, the public health orders that we have in place. Second, Saskatchewan people have went back to work, and they've done so safely. Saskatchewan people have went back to school. They have done so safely. We have reopened our economy, we have reopened our schools, we have reopened our communities, and that is all thanks to what the Saskatchewan people have done. Do you have any comments on specifics?
So we always build our projections in any given budget and therefore in this platform on the trajectory we were on. So we have the data available that we feel very confident in the numbers going forward. There can always be a catastrophic event, and I've spoken to that in a number of budgets, where then you make the adjustments accordingly. But this is based on not recovery immediately, it's recovery over time, and then growth going forward, and that is why we have the stimulus within this platform to encourage and foster that recovery, and we have the faith in Saskatchewan businesses, Saskatchewan people, that they are recovering, and the numbers right now are showing it. We're leading the nation in our recovery. We're leading the nation in economic activity that's happening within our province. So I would say we're on those projections, if not ahead of them already.
Things are uncertain, and as we saw this spring, things can change very quickly. So I think the people deserve a clear answer, sir. If you do not achieve these revenue projections for whatever reason, another lockdown, etc., what is your preference? Would you extend the goal of balancing the budget a few extra years, or would you hike the PST and do any kind of a cut in order to keep on this 4-year back-to-balance plan?
So I'll come back to the cuts in a minute, because there is some cuts that we are going to talk about here, but they may not be in the nature that you're suggesting or that the NDP have been suggesting. But when you look at a number of the commitments that we have here, they're focused on 2 areas. One is the affordability for our families in this province, understanding that there has been some financial cost to families over the course of the last 6 months. And so we have focused very much on the affordability for our Saskatchewan families with rebates on their power bill, for example, with lower taxes for our small businesses across the province, the people that employ the vast majority of Saskatchewan people, increasing our childcare spaces to ensure that we have access to childcare spaces across the province. But many of the initiatives that we have in place on the second initiative that we have here is to foster the economic recovery in Saskatchewan are time-based initiatives. The small business tax incentive is going to phase out. The home renovation tax incentive is going to phase out. The reduction in our electricity bills is for 1 year. When we get to the year 2024-25, we are confident that this economic recovery that we are having in Saskatchewan is going to continue, and we are going to be back to a very structurally sound budget here in the province of Saskatchewan, one that does continue to support a growing economy and also does support the families across this province. Now, I said I would close on some cuts. There is some cuts in this campaign platform, but as I said, they're a little bit different than maybe people are thinking. We are going to cut the taxes that you pay when you renovate your home. We are going to cut your power bill for 1 year by 10%. We are going to cut taxes for small businesses, the very businesses that employ people across this province, and we're going to continue to invest in families to ensure that their life is more affordable than it has ever been.
You still didn't answer my question, sir. I know you have an optimistic belief that these projections are going to come to fruition, but if they do not, will you extend the back to balance goal beyond 2024-25, or will you make interventions in the form of PST raising or any kind of service reductions in order to keep to this 4-year back to balance plan?
I am not going to answer a hypothetical. I am going to
That's
put
not
our platform
hypothetical,
before
sir.
the people of this province. I most certainly, and we are confident in the numbers that we have put forward before the people of this province. We are confident in the economic recovery. We're in a province that is leading the national economic recovery. The job numbers out just a few hours ago have 8,700 more jobs in this province. The job numbers out just a few hours ago have Saskatchewan at a 6.8% unemployment rate. That's above the national average. That's first of all provinces and territories in this country. That is thanks to what Saskatchewan people have done, most certainly. They have most certainly flattened the curve. Our COVID rates are the lowest in the nation as well. And in doing so, we have been able to reopen our economy, reopen our schools, reopen our communities, and we've done so safely. So for that, I say thank you. And I have confidence, every confidence in the people of this province that success is going to continue.
Your party platform in 2016 was significantly less money than the cost of this platform, and yet in 2017 in the budget we saw significant cuts that affected people all across Saskatchewan. Why should people trust that your party won't spend all in the meantime and then just revert to cuts the next year?
As I said, there are some cuts in this campaign. We're cutting families' electrical rates across the province. We're cutting taxes on small businesses. What we are doing here, and as you look at the costing platform that we have here, is we are investing in Saskatchewan people, in Saskatchewan families, and we are investing in the recovery of the economy. What we have faced the last 6 or 7 months, not just in Saskatchewan, not even just in Canada, but what we have been facing around the world, is likely the largest health and economic challenge that just this generation has ever faced. For certain, it's the largest health and economic challenge that we have faced in the last half a century. We are going to take a few years to invest in our province, invest in the people of our province, and we're going to invest in an economic recovery here in Saskatchewan to ensure that we will be able to return back to not only everyone back to work that was working pre-COVID, and we're at about 97% of those returned today, but so that we can get back to growing our economy, get back to the targets that we had in our plan for growth, get back to concentrating on our export-driven economy and markets here in the province of Saskatchewan, and start working towards creating those 100,000 jobs by the year 2030 that we had set out for in our plan for growth.
Can you just explain more in detail to the public where is the money going to come from? I mean, these are unprecedented times. It's very hard to predict the future. So what are you foreseeing here?
Well, as I said, two things. There is going to be growth in the economy. That's stated in the plan that we have here today, the revenue projections for the province. There is growth in the economy, and that will mean growth in the provincial revenues without tax increases, without making cuts outside of the cuts to people's power rates and small business taxes. When you look at the investments that we have made in the economic recovery in this plan that we have, they phase out. The decrease in our electricity rates is for 1 year. The small business tax incentive is for 2.5 years. When you look at what we are investing in, the home renovation tax credit is for 2.5 years as well. These are all initiatives, yes, to increase the affordability for our families across the province, but they're also investments and initiatives to ensure that we can foster a solid economic recovery as we find ourselves what will hopefully be on the backside of a global pandemic in the COVID-19 virus. This is a solid plan. We're investing in Saskatchewan families, investing in recovering our economy, and putting our province in the very best position to grow and prosper in the years ahead.
And sir, what would you say to people who suggest your party is just buying votes with these short-term promises?
I would say that these are investments in people. These are investments in our families and communities right across Saskatchewan. We're very proud to make these investments on their behalf. I would also say that these are investments in the economic recovery of which Saskatchewan is leading the nation as we speak. We are doing very well in this province. We're doing very well with respect to the healthcare challenges, the global pandemic, and I credit and thank the people of this province for that. And we're doing extremely well when it comes to recovering our economy, getting people back to work in our communities, and really reopening our communities, most recently with hockey yesterday.
Lots of comparisons this morning to the previous NDP government. I guess there's just an endless list of changes since then, including a pandemic. I just wonder what the usefulness is of comparing yourselves to a government from 13 years ago.
We have a record of growth. They have a record of decline. They can't change their record. That's their record.
And then just wondering about who's paying to ship the platform all across the province, and if you think people will appreciate it. I remember when U2 tried doing something similar, putting their new album on everybody's iPhone, didn't go over so well.
I did not draw that comparison. Now, this is something similar that and flattered to be compared to U2, I suppose. We are, very proud of the platform that we have put together, very proud of the investments that it will be making in Saskatchewan families, in the economy, and the opportunities that we have economically here in the province of Saskatchewan, and we feel it's important that people know of the record of this party, and we will continue to do what we say we are going to do, versus the record of a party that closed hospitals and closed schools across this province. That is the record you are going to see here. A party, 61 candidates in the Saskatchewan party that are going to run on our record. You're going to see something very different from the NDP. They will be running away from their record.
Yeah, I'm looking at your revenue projections over the next 4 years, and I see about a $3 billion growth in revenue. Can you break that down specifically? Like, where's that coming from? And is this contingent on you saying the pandemic will end next year sometime, we'll have a vaccine, and all these restrictions will end then?
I might ask Donna Harpower just to speak a little bit to the revenue projections. With respect to the pandemic ending, and no one knows when that will occur. No one knows what would precipitate that, whether it be a vaccine or something else. I think in Saskatchewan, it's important for us to identify with this fact. We're reopening and our recovery is underway now. We are leading the nation in that recovery and people getting back to work in our communities. We're leading the nation in reopening our communities, our recreational facilities, opening our athletic opportunities, and reopening essentially in a very different way everything that we did previous to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I wouldn't say that Saskatchewan's economic recovery is in any way contingent on COVID-19 going away one day. We're learning how to go back to work. We're learning how to get out and about, but we're learning how to do it safely as well. As not only are we leading on the economic front in this nation, we are leading with respect to the COVID infections that we have here in Saskatchewan. And again, I once again want to thank each and every person in Saskatchewan. The collective success is a result of the decisions that each of us are making as individuals. You want to speak to the revenue targets?
So very bluntly, the revenue breakdown is largely, so it's taxation and fees. Is a large proponent, and then you have your resource revenues in a budget as well as federal government transfers. So the numbers are based on the federal government transfer history and the formulas that they're based on. It's based on keeping our reliance on non-renewable resources at that 10 to 12% with some projected increase in that, and that we get those projections, quite frankly, right from the industry itself in what their out-year projections are. And then the rest is our revenues through taxation. So it is a growth in taxation, which we've seen over the last decade, quite frankly, in all of our taxation, both the PST, corporate income tax, and the small business tax. So those are all based on those. That's pretty much the majority of our revenues within the province.
Okay, and I see in the 2021-22 budget, you're spending $70 million less than you are in the current budget. Where is that 70? Because it says 16,177 for this year, 16,111 for next year. Where's the $70 million being?
It would be a fall off of programs that are one-time only. I'm going to say because we have.
For example.
For example, would be the small business grant that we gave, emergency grant. We gave that for 2 months. We also have a grant that we're now giving through the tourism industry. That falls off because it's just one-time grants.
So are these pandemic related?
Yes, yes.
There was a number of pandemic-related costs that we had in our first quarter update with respect to supporting small businesses, supporting the tourist and hospitality sector that are one-time grants that have fallen off or will be falling off. Yes?
So in your platform, I see you say there's a record $5.8 billion invested in healthcare. I see money for long-term care homes and things of that nature. In this province right now, there have been 40 overdose deaths during this pandemic, or this year I should say, which is a record, and over 100 suspected overdose deaths. Given that you've invested so much money in long-term care homes and everything else, why didn't you invest in this breast consumption site here in Saskatoon when we so clearly need it?
I will turn this over to Jim Ryder in a moment as well. I would just precurse with the investments that we have made over the course of the last few years, and they have been increasing markedly and need to continue increasing into the future in mental health addictions and treating those that have either of those or both of those challenges. Most recent investments, I think, were in an addictions rehabilitation site in Estevan, reopening a site there that was open a few decades ago, over a decade ago, specific to treating crystal meth addictions. The urgent care centers that we had announced previous to going into the campaign have a mental health aspect to them to increase the continuum of care and ensure that those that are having mental health and or addictions issues will be able to access that continuum of care and get the services that they require across the province in a more expedient way. And Jim, I'll turn it over to you to speak to some of the other investments that we have made, because this is a good question and it's one that we need to continue to talk about.
Thanks, Premier. To the Premier's point, our budget this past June is $435 million for mental health and addictions. That's about over a $30 million increase from the previous year, and that previous year was approximately a $30 million increase as well. So you saw a number of programs in place. Premier mentioned the Crystal Meth Treatment Center in Estevan. We're also increasing funding in some harm reduction initiatives. You're going to see the urgent care centers come up that'll have a mental health component to it. I think the short answer to your question is on the safe consumption site, we felt this year it's important to get the infrastructure in place. You're seeing more addictions treatment beds, more counselors, a great deal more wraparound services, and to the safe consumption site. I'm sure at some point in time that'll be revisited again.
Do you know when? In this next budget cycle?
Every year when we go through the budget process, obviously we take a look at all programs. So I think it's fair to say that the past few years, mental health and addictions has been a significant priority, and I think it'll continue to be.
Okay. So yesterday, Mayor Charlie Clark spoke about asked people to observe public health concerns, obviously worried about a second wave. Numbers across the country are spiking. There was over 1,000 in Quebec. Markets took a hit over the past few days when President Donald Trump was tweeting different things about support for COVID. You called this the greatest economic and health challenge just a few minutes ago. So my follow-up is a follow-up from an earlier question. The numbers it's extremely unlikely that the numbers you have in your budget will stay the same. So when they change, what comes first? Is it changes to taxes, or will you start cutting some budget items?
We put forward a plan here that we're very confident in, and Saskatchewan has led the nation not only in leading our COVID-19 healthcare response, but we are and the results, the subsequent results. We have the lowest COVID infections in the nation. We're also now leading the nation on the economic recovery. As I said in a previous question, we were also the first province to come forward with a budget here in Canada. We still don't see a federal budget. I've seen a number of provincial budgets since then, but Saskatchewan was first in bringing forward that provincial budget in what was reasonably uncertain times early in this pandemic. As we find our way through this pandemic, we are finding that there is ways to control it, and we are reopening our economy, our communities in a very methodical and safe fashion, and thanks to the people of Saskatchewan for every effort that they are making to ensure that remains the case. And as we understand this virus better, as we understand how we can safely reopen our schools, economy, communities, then we were the first government, not party in this election, but government, to come forward with an actual 4-year plan to balance the budget. So we're confident in the work that we have done with respect to first coming forward with that budget, second coming forward with a 4-year plan, and we're very confident in the numbers that we have put forward that Saskatchewan will be, with a Saskatchewan Party government, if we are successful on October the 26th, we would be the first province to move forward and to actually recover and to balance the budget here in the nation.
I understand your confidence, but when the numbers change, as they almost certainly will, what happens next?
You're insinuating that they will change. The numbers do change. They have changed over the course of the last number of years. I'm sure Donna Harpower can speak to some of the variability. I don't think anybody could have anticipated a negative $7 energy price this past spring, which most certainly was alarming to those that were working in the industry and took pause for all levels of government to really do what they could do to not only support that industry, but to set up a structure to ensure that it can continue to be competitive. Listen, the numbers have changed for the last, since Saskatchewan was a province. We are very confident in the projections that we've put forward here. As I said, we are the first in the nation to come forward to the budget, first in the nation to come forward to the plan to balance, and we believe we'll be the first in the nation to deliver on that plan if we are successful and we gain the trust of the people of the province in forming government here on October the 26th. Do you want to speak to that at all, Donna?
So very quickly, just to add to what the Premier said, you know who else is confident in our numbers is the credit rating agencies that have said with what we projected, they feel that we have the structural change that we needed to make, and we kept our AAA credit rating, and that's huge because that also is what investors look at. If they want to look at a jurisdiction that's stable, that can keep taxes low, they're going to look at your credit rating, and that is also brings down our borrowing costs significantly. So it's not just us that's confident in those numbers. The credit rating agencies are confident in those numbers. We've had very good reviews of our Q1, the first quarter report, from different financial bankers that have said that it's solid, that it's credible. So all of that is available to say that there's not just our confidence. There's confidence in the business and financial world.
I would just add to that, this morning we obtained a leaked copy of another plan that is being put forward here today with a $2.7 billion deficit with absolutely no plan to balance and much imaginary math I would put forward in that plan as well. That imaginary math will result in real tax increases. It will result in decades of deficits for Saskatchewan people. So these are very good questions. These are very good questions on the parties that are running in this campaign to govern on behalf of the people of this province. Do they actually have a plan to get back to balance? We've put forward a plan that has the approval has the confidence of the credit rating agencies, has the confidence of the people that have put this together, the policy analysis that we have, versus another plan that ultimately is using imaginary math and will result in real tax increases on Saskatchewan people.
My colleague pointed out the lower expenses plan next year, and you explained that from programs related to COVID that would end. However, when we look at your medium-term outlook from Mrs. Harpower here, we see that $365 million in revenue come from emergency help from the federal government, and we can expect it to at some point stop. How is that taken into account? Because you take into account the lower expenses, but not the lower revenue in this case. Can you explain this discrepancy?
Yeah, so also what we have existing right now in the first year is the $200 million contingency for unexpected costs. Now that we're a number of months into the pandemic, we have spent some of that money, but that also will fall off along with the revenue that you're speaking of, and it's kind of a balance because we won't need a contingency every year. We're not going to have this pandemic, hopefully, touch wood, for years to come.
Okay.
And I would just say the transfers from the federal government were through the Safe Restart program at the Council of Federation table that all premiers had worked with the federal government on, and then the 7 different areas of investment were then made into the province.
There were some media accounts that said that there was a movement inside your party to oust you. I think many people have said that from your party have said this is false. Even NDP, representative of the NDP thought it was far-fetched. Not on that particular claim, but more the fact that this kind of fake news or claim is making its way in Saskatchewan politics. We might be used to see it more on the federal level or on south of the border. How do you react to seeing that kind of dynamic play out in Saskatchewan?
This is very disappointing when we see these types of these types of entities with political interests, essentially, that we're trying to weigh in, and thus far we've seen them attempt to weigh in on a number of different political campaigns and elections. We are seeing that here in Saskatchewan with a few different outlets. It's disappointing. It's disappointing that an outside entity would weigh in a very real and disappointing way, very not a credible way to weigh in on an election ultimately where the people of this province are going to decide who is going to govern, who is going to help them grow their economy and their community over the course of the next 4 years.
And one last quick question. You're sending your document here, your platform, to everyone in Saskatchewan, I guess to every civic address. However, in some First Nation communities, they don't use that system. How do you plan to reach out everyone, especially those in those communities?
We've done this last year. I've done this in my community as well, in my constituency. There is ways that we're able to get this out to, yes, every civic address, but we're also able to get it out to those that are living in our Indigenous communities as well.
Thanks very much, everyone. That concludes our time for today.